Social media lets you go from thought to talk to broadcast instantly and infectiously. So does that network world require some kind of proactive leadership or discipline or hierarchy in order to be most effective, as Malcolm Gladwell earlier suggested? Or are truth and action better served by letting the wisdom of the crowd prevail?
Shailesh, you want to answer that?
Yeah, I think the beauty of Twitter, at least, is that you discover these new leaders, new voices all the time. And if you try to impose some kind of rules on that, I think you'd lose the serendipity, the kind of pleasant surprise of discovering something you never expected. Let me tell you a few stories, because I think we're talking about social media in a very conceptual way. And the only way to feel the impact of social media is to talk about real examples, okay? So I met with a boy who was, at the time, 14 years old in the slums of Brazil. His name is Rene Silva. And there was a government program 3-4 years ago to clean up the slums. And they sent the military into the slums in Rio de Janeiro. And the slums in Brazil are called favelas. And unfortunately, the project started to become violent. It was using military, and the military were committing some atrocities against the people who lived in the slums. Now, this little boy at 14 years old, he had nothing but a mobile phone, right? And with his mobile phone, he started tweeting about some of the crimes that he was seeing. Now, those tweets got picked up by international media. International media started to broadcast based on this 14-year-old's tweets. And in the end, the government and the military in Brazil had to pull back from the program, redesign the program to be more community-friendly, and ultimately they accomplished their goal. They're able to remove gangsters and violence from the slums, but do it in a way that was friendly to families. And this was all stimulated by a 14-year-old boy, right? And so if you try to impose some rules, if you try to put some order, you would never have a little child who is able to speak out and actually change the course of a country's history. And just in the Summer Olympics in London, he was selected to carry the torch for the country, right? So just a story to give you an example of the beauty of letting a platform like Twitter organically play out, because you never know where the powerful voices and the leadership will come from. Sometimes it could come from someone who's a 14-year-old boy living in a slum.
Yeah. 2 last questions. Yes, this gentleman, please keep it short and ask to a particular person.
This question is to Derek, and also a school-time fantasy asking a question to my quiz master.
Yes.
So, thank you for giving the compliment to BJP. I represent the BJP digital team I headed. What is the thin line between governance, etiquette, and censorship on the internet and social media in general? I mean, there's a lot of talk about having some discipline, but what are the stretches of this discipline, and where does censorship take over, or where does governance take over?
I would largely go along with what you said, Shailesh, because I think I've been on Twitter now for 3 years, and the kind of stuff I get on Twitter in terms of negativity, because the first thing it's very negative, but I've never blocked anyone on Twitter, never, and I don't plan to block. So I think the first thing is, I think the medium itself edits itself most of the time, and there are people, if you get nasty, there are enough people on the medium who will tell you not to get nasty. So I'm optimistic from that point of view. But what is sometimes dangerous, and it has worked, and compliments to even though you mentioned about 66A, when there are things like death threats. 3 days ago, there was an assassination threat to a senior political leader in India, and one had to call up, and not to call up to say take it off, because then again, if you say call up and take it off, then they'll say, see, interfering. But if you just say call up and say take a look, and then, so I think a lot of it is self-imposition, and I'm still a believer in self-imposition, because if I wasn't a believer, in terms of governance, I think it's being used pretty well. So I'm not a believer in that you have to have this, authority sitting on the top. Optimistic, but when it crosses the line, then we have to be a little careful.
Okay. One last question, very quick, that's it.
For all the social media greats, what would you differentiate between social responsibility and censorship as far as social media is concerned?
Social media greats. Wow, that's wonderful. You called us social media greats? Or social responsibility. Okay, and?
The social media censorship.
Right.
There are a lot of things on social media which are good and bad. Do you bear social responsibility for all the bad
I
things?
think we just answered that question, right?
Maybe
You wanna
Amir
add
would like
something
to
to
say a
that?
quick thing. Yeah.
Right. It's the duality of social media as you've rightly mentioned, an unregulated or a space regulated in a minimalist way, and the component of social responsibility / what comes with it in terms of censorship is a duality which we face in our society. I would put India and Egypt in the same basket as opposed to societies which have been institutionally used to freedom of expression since ages and have moved beyond barriers related to specific perceptions of culture and identity / religion. I believe in Egypt, at least reflecting on what's going on, social media is injecting a degree of vibrant attitudes and a degree of dynamism in transcending conventional barriers with regard to freedom of expression, be it related to male-female relationships, be it related to religion or cultural / historical identities, and is enabling citizens to voice out concerns related to those issues, marginalized groups, discriminated against groups, including women, non-Muslims to an extent in Egypt, and so on and so forth. Discrimination is societal and not legal. So, no, I am glad that we lack censorship in social media, and I'm willing to endure the messy nature of what I, as a politician, get on a daily basis for the sake of enabling society to voice out concerns and to express diversity.
Great. Thank you so much, all of you. Any more questions, please direct them to the speakers outside. Thank you.